Hey, welcome back to the JK Moto Entertainment channel. Welcome back once again to Stable B, our favorite place. Today, we're going to talk about something very important if you're looking at getting into track days, or if you've never done a track day before. You're about to do your first track day, whatever that might be, whatever situation. We're going to talk about TrackDay Tech, and specifically the common things that get you, but we're going to go over just about everything that they look at on a bike and talk about how you can make sure that your bike is ready to go for your first track day. Now, not just your first track day, but also maybe just your first track day after the long winter season or after a long break, or maybe you ride this thing to work every day and you do a couple track days of summer or something like that, whatever the situation might be. If it's been a minute since you've looked at all these different things, we're gonna go through them. We're gonna talk about them, maybe head out in the garage, check on your bike, make sure you're good to go. Before we get into it, please, I gotta ask that you click the subscribe button down below on the channel, throw a like on the video. If you have any questions about TrackDay Tech or anything like that, or if you're on the other side of things and you've done track days plenty of times, or you are a tech guy for a track day organization or anything like that, please throw those comments down in the description as well, or not in the description, down in the comment section as well, so that we can have all that great info in here. I love the community, I love having everyone's input and whatnot, but let's go ahead and get into TrackDay Tech and what that means. Dude, I love the spinny chairs. People are, yeah, don't say anything. I ran into the bike right there. But anyway, we're gonna use this bike back here as an example. I'm gonna go through a list of a couple things that I know for a fact that they cover at a TrackDay Tech, and then we'll kind of show you on the motorcycle what those are and what to be looking for when you're looking over your own bike. Like, first of all, this should go without saying, but let me go ahead and say it just so everyone knows, a clean bike is much easier to get through tech. Now, your goal for tech at your track day, no matter if it's your first or your 10th or your 100th, should never be like, oh, I just gotta pass tech and then we'll get this machine out there. She might not pass, I don't know. We're hoping. You should go into it already knowing whether or not that bike is gonna pass. And if the answer is no, you should get all that fixed. It's one thing to go out on the road and kind of put yourself in danger, and like whatever you ride with that on the road, you should still take care of your motorcycle. I'm not saying, oh, who cares if it's on the road, it doesn't matter, but that's on you. But when you get out on the racetrack, you are riding out there with other people and you're gonna be pushing your bike and they're gonna be pushing their bike, hopefully close to its limits. And so you don't wanna have anything that's gonna go wrong while you're out there. Now, also, tech is not like the end all be all. They're not gonna open up your motor and verify that everything is good in there. They're not gonna look at like every single possible thing. They also have hundreds of bikes in the morning to look at. They're likely to miss something. So you should 100% know before you show up to tech, before you show up to whatever, your bike is good to go. That's why we're going over it tonight. That's what we're gonna cover. And we are gonna talk about some things that like commonly get people that also really aren't as big of a deal, I think, in my opinion. But we'll talk about those. But the cleanliness of the bike is one of the easiest ways to like get through tech without people being like, yo, this is crazy. Because it shows that you do take care of your bike. If you're doing maintenance on your bike often, then your bike should be clean often. You should kind of be cleaning things up as you go. And a little bit more than just cleaning and lubing your chain. Now, we're gonna look at this Gixxer, and this Gixxer's been sitting in the garage for well over 6 months, so she might be a little dusty, and yeah, there's a little bit of grime on the bottom, but overall she's pretty decently clean, and you should definitely clean your bike before you go to your track day. Plus, it just looks nicer in the pits that way. But anyway, let's go ahead and gather ourselves kind of like a list of things, and then we'll look at them on the bike and kind of talk about them. So besides just good working order, the first thing that they're gonna look at is kind of your externals being bolted on well. So anything that your hands are gonna put pressure on or your feet are gonna put pressure on, i.e. your clip-ons up here and your rear sets down below, they're gonna test those and make sure that those are nice and tight. So when you pull up to tech, you want to kind of have your feet far enough out. If you're still sitting on the bike, if you're sitting off to the side of the bike, it's a lot easier, but have your feet far enough out and forward that they can easily reach down in there and grab those things and make sure they're not going to go anywhere. So they're going to grab your clip-ons, they're going to grab your rear sets, make sure they're bolted on well. Once again, they're not going to pull out a torque wrench and check the torque. So if you know that those things come loose, that's something you need to fix. Don't just tighten it up for tech and be like, yep, hey, it passed tech, we're good to go. Let's go see if this thing will make it through a track day. That's not something you want to question while you're out there. Next thing we're probably going to look at, and I've never done a tech, so I don't know the order they go in, so if anyone has any experience, please, like I said, throw that down in the comments, but they're definitely going to look at your tires while you're there. I've seen some posts on a couple of Facebook groups that I'm a part of where people are like, hey man, does this tire have enough tread left? Is it good to go? if you are questioning whether or not your tire is good, go get some new tires. How do I say this nicely? If your goal is to progress, your goal is to get faster lap times and whatever else, having a nice set of like track day oriented tires or racetrack oriented tires, they don't have to be slicks. They don't even have to be your top of the line, you know, Pirelli or Dunlop, but like a more sportier tire is gonna go a long way for helping you out on the racetrack. So if you're like questioning, is this good enough? And you're asking a bunch of people on Facebook via a picture you took with your cell phone in not very good lighting with not very good quality, go ahead and get some new tires. Now, tires are expensive, we understand that. By all means, like if you still have tread left, you can still use it. I'm not telling you like, hey, I used this tire twice, do I need to get a new one? I'm not trying to say that, but if you're questioning whether or not the tire is good enough, the tires are arguably like one of the most important parts of a motorcycle or any vehicle, really. Because they're what puts the power to the ground to get you to go. There's what gives you the actual grip to the ground when you're trying to go around a corner, and they're what's gonna give you the grip to the ground when you're trying to stop. So yeah, like your brake pads need to be good, your brake calipers and your brake discs all need to be good, but if you have bad tires, a good brake disc ain't gonna do you any good. It's just gonna lock that thing up and you're still gonna crash out. So make sure your tires are good to go. You got at least 50 to 60, maybe even 70% tread left on them. And I will say also, if you do a lot of commuting and you're on a sportier tire, swapping out for a new tire is gonna feel a lot different, because as soon as you start commuting on these bad things, you get that flat spot. I've talked about that before. And if you don't know, just go look at your tire. If you do a ton of commuting on your sport bike, go look at the back. Even with the dual and triple compounds and all that, the middle of that back tire, I guarantee, is flat, and maybe even the front a little bit. So having a new tire with that round profile is gonna let that bike tip in a lot easier, and you'll love it out on the racetrack. Now, once again, you don't have to. If you've got plenty of life, especially out on the edges of the tire, then go ahead and use them. I'm just letting you know, if you get a newer tire, it'll be a lot nicer. All right, so we talked about tires. Next, we're gonna talk about the two things that get you to go and that get you to not go. So that's gonna be your chain in the back, your sprockets, and then your brakes in the front. And then we'll get into the other thing that gets you to go, which will be throttle. So in the front, you have your brakes. On those brakes, you have discs. They're not gonna come out and measure the minimum wear of your discs. And if you know what I'm talking about, then you know. If you don't, you could get your brake discs resurfaced. On motorcycles, I don't think it's as common, near as common as in a car, because we don't have as much thickness in the first place. And new brakes aren't like horribly expensive. But if you ever went and got your brakes resurfaced, they're not gonna pull out a micrometer and check or a caliper and check the thickness of them. They're not gonna verify. They're not gonna do crazy stuff like that. Once again, this isn't like this insane tech where you have to go prove to these people that you can sell this as showroom quality. They're just checking them to make sure that the overall outside of the bike is gonna be safe and you're gonna be able to operate it on the racetrack. If you know something is not right, once again, I'm gonna repeat this probably a dozen times tonight. Please, do not take that bike out on the racetrack. If you think, oh, I don't know if this will pass tech, you should be figuring that stuff out with either a buddy or a mechanic or something like that beforehand, before you ever get to tech. If you have a question about it. Now, if you don't know, just in the morning, you're like, hey, I noticed this thing. I'm prepared to go over to the mechanic shop and fix it. I'm just curious what your guys' take is on it. The guys up at tech, the guys at registration, they know what they're talking about generally. So you can absolutely go ask them. But your brakes, what they're gonna look at up there is that thickness of the brake pad inside. Now, once again, they're not gonna pull out a measuring device and measure how thick it is, but you can tell when someone's been on these pads for 10 years and they haven't changed them yet, and they do a lot of commuting on them. So if you haven't looked at your own brake pads in a while, if you're at home, you should measure them. Pull the wheel off, pull the pads out, and measure them and see if they're within the minimum thickness, and look at like, okay, maximum, or when I bought them, they were this thickness, now they're here, and the minimum is here. I've got this many millimeters, or however, tenths of a millimeter or whatever, before they're at the minimum. I should probably go get new ones, or maybe not. You should look into that. I'd say if you're 30, 40% wear, brake pads are not that expensive, go ahead and get new brake pads. While you're there, look at your brake fluid. If you haven't flushed that in a while, you should probably flush it. Anyway, so that's what they're gonna look at up front. There is the brakes there. They're also good, like generally just looking for loose bolts. Nothing should be loose. It's kind of, they're not gonna like take everything and shake it. Really, I've only ever seen them looking at those clip-ons and rear sets like we already talked about. But if you have fairings that are falling off, you can put those back on with duct tape or a couple zip ties, drill a hole, throw some zip ties in it, that's okay. But you don't want anything that's gonna be flapping around or falling off out on the racetrack. That's kind of the front. Moving to the back, chain and sprockets. Once again, we're gonna go over all this a little bit more in detail here in a minute, just a couple things. They're gonna look at your chain tightness. We'll talk more about that in a second, and then your chain health. Chain health is gonna be shown best by the sprockets and the teeth on the sprockets specifically. So if you have very, very worn down teeth, that means your chain is also probably worn down, or you put a new chain on without changing your sprockets. and someone forgot to do a bunch of maintenance back in the day. Generally, if you're doing chain maintenance, those sprocket teeth will last for a long, long time, unless you're doing some crazy stuff. But if you have rounded off teeth on your sprocket, that is way more likely to throw a chain. The last thing we want out there is a chain flying off the bike, breaking, hitting someone else. So they are gonna take a good look at your chain and your rear sprocket and make sure everything's good to go there. And then also the tightness of that chain. And probably, I don't know if they looked that deep into it, but how do I say that? How even the rear axle, there it is, sorry. Rear axle rod, how even that is on the swing arm. I don't know if they've ever like actually looked at that. They don't talk to you and they're like, no, I'm looking at this. It's not like the dentist where they're calling out T14 needs a blah patch on whatever tooth. I don't know. But you can also always ask, right? Like, hey, what are you looking at back there? That way you can kind of know what to look at beforehand. And this is a very generalized list. I do also want to throw out, if you are like, hey, you know, Easton just said, look at these 5 things, so that's all I'm going to look at. That's probably not the right answer. Whatever TrackDay org you go to, they will have a list on their website of everything that they're going to look at in tech, and you should go through that also. This is just kind of a generalization to get you there, and hopefully you also go look at that list after this. But so we got the back, we talked about tires, we talked about brakes, we talked about chain, we talked about clip-ons, we talked about rear sets. Yeah, the last thing they're going to do, and I haven't figured out why they do this, but they're going to like compress your front suspension. They're going to go up and they're going to push on it. And it's so weird to me because I'm like, I don't know what they're looking for. I'm assuming to make sure that the bike springs back up and actually compresses. I know that goes a lot into braking. They want to make sure it's not way too soft, because if you bottom out while you're braking, turns out you lose a lot of braking power there, and that's not good when you're coming down a front straight at 160 plus miles an hour and you want to go down to 40. So you need that. But the last thing you're going to look at up front there is going to be your throttle, and specifically it springing back. And there are times where you put in aftermarket throttles or something like that where if you twist, not just aftermarket throttles, aftermarket anything, but if you twist your handlebars all the way one direction, it's gonna pull that throttle cable nice and tight, and it could actually crack open that throttle a little bit. So they will move, they should anyway, move your handlebars full twist both directions and pull that throttle and verify that it snaps back closed, right? And watching to make sure that it operates like that. So we're gonna go ahead and move around the bike real quick and kind of show you all these things we talked about, and that'll close out this video. All right, so back here we're looking at our rear sets and our chain. And once again, like I said, this has been sitting for a while, so there's a lot of dust. That shouldn't be on there, but it's okay. So like I said, they're literally just gonna grab this and verify that it's not gonna move up and down or back and forth. So you got 2 bolts holding this thing onto this bracket, 2 more bolts on that bracket, and this little guy, a little less important, but you don't want that thing flying off. Could definitely hit someone in the face, that'd be bad. They might also kind of look at this, verify that everything's good there. They're not gonna shift through every gear and verify that, but just making sure that all the connections here are gonna be sturdy, because if you lose gear selection out there, that's also not good. Then the beloved chain. Man, this chain really needs cleaned. There was another recent video that I said this chain needs cleaned. We gotta clean this chain. Anyway, I talked about sprocket teeth. If you want more on sprocket teeth, I just recommend doing some research. I'm not gonna go into sprocket teeth tonight. If you're questioning that, do a little bit of research on it. There's plenty of ways to check and make sure. You can come back and just look at like good engagement and make sure it's actually going all the way up in. But anyway, if we look at chain tightness. Now, earlier I was talking about how there are gonna be some things where they are, quote, common offenders. So we're gonna talk about our common offenders. Chain tightness is definitely a common offender, and that's because honestly, I feel like everyone has a different opinion on how tight your chain should actually be. You'll hear a lot of things thrown around. You'll hear 1/2 inch to 1 inch. Also understand that if you're coming out and you're not sitting on the bike, you're not going to get a good depiction of it, because when you're at tech, you will be sitting on the bike, you'll have weight on it. When you put weight on it, that's going to tighten this chain up a little bit, because the swing arm is going to come. I wonder if I can prove that. Anyway, when you compress the back, if you guys watch just very closely, watch right here. Let me steepen up my lighting a little bit for you. And watch this move down. You're gonna see your frame here and your swing arm spread out because of that compression that I'm putting on the back. So you'll notice that chain is actually gonna get a little bit tighter. Hopefully I can show that decently. Very, very minimal, and I understand that. But hopefully that kind of showcased that a little bit. So anyway, if you come out and you look, I've seen people where they're like, oh man, I really don't like that slaps the bottom of the swing arm there, that you have that much looseness. You should maybe tighten that up a little bit. I've seen people where you have like almost no movement. They're like, dude, you gotta loosen that thing. Generally, I would I like it to be pretty loose. They're gonna tell you on the track you want it more loose than on the road because you need more suspension travel or you'll use more suspension travel, blah, blah, blah. 1 inch to 2 inches of play here is kind of what you want. So you see that's probably about 1.5 inches right there up and down, which is good. You can measure it up here, that's a little different, but you move down here and you want about 1 inch to 1.5 inches. It takes almost no work to tighten and loosen your chain. If you can do it with yourself sitting on it and someone else looking at it, that's a lot better because like I said, but generally I'll shoot for a full 2 inches here. And then when I'm sitting on it, that usually takes it down to about 1 inch, 1.5 inches. Well, more like 1.5 inches, 1.75 inches. This is gonna be one of your worst offenders. It's like a classic. They always love to be like, oh, chain, gotta go tighten it or gotta loosen that chain. It's like a classic. So I can't really, if you're going to your first track day, be prepared to have to fix your chain tightness. Okay, so what we were talking about earlier is make sure that this throttle right here can snap back. So pull it, release it, you get that good snap back. What they're gonna do is pull this all the way this way till it locks out, and you can see that's, hopefully you can hear that, let's see. Locked out, still got a good snap. Over to that side, I'll tell you to the throttle side is the one that's more important because that's where your throttle cables are gonna be twisted more. And then you go back to the other side all the way and my brake lever actually runs in up there. That's kind of funny. Things like that, I will say, like if you're worried about it, if you got something that's like, oh my goodness, it rubs a little bit, you're never gonna be like on the racetrack, you're never gonna turn your wheel that far or turn your handlebars, your front wheel. There's still a wheel that's turning. It's not a steering wheel, it's not what I was talking about. But you're never gonna turn your front handlebars that far. So it's okay if you've got a little bit of like, hey, I can't go full movement. They're not gonna hit you on that, but you do wanna make sure at like pretty good distance that that thing still snaps back and that it does snap back nice and quickly. If you own one of these old Gixxers, the grips love to rub on the throttle housing. So watch that if you ever install new grips, but that's what we're looking for up there. All right, looking up here at the front of the bike, these are brake calipers. I really just wanted to brag about my custom Brembos. To get them in blue, they cost an extra $5,000. So definitely what you want to do is spend the extra $5,000. Actually, I'm kidding. It's a $3 Walmart paint marker, and you just paint it in whatever color you want. Real cool way to kind of customize your bike. I'm not here to tell you that you'll pass tech if you have custom brake calipers, but I think they look cool. But anyway, I don't expect them to sit here and like wiggle these things, but they might look and make sure there's no gap on any of these screws. Also something you should look at. Make sure there's no signs of leakage. That's kind of the big one. While we're up here, we're gonna talk about your forks too. Fork seal leakage. If you have any sign of fork seal leakage here, you need to go replace your fork seals. If you show up to tech and you've just been wiping this thing off and they leak while you go from your pit to tech, and they see fork seal leakage, they're 100% gonna call you out on it, and that will put off your track day because finding a mechanic to rebuild your forks and to do it in a timely manner is gonna take a lot of time and a decent amount of money, if there's even one actually there. Usually they have a good bike mechanic at track days, but yeah. So check on your fork seals, just go up. If you have any sort of fluid here, usually it won't be at the top because you use your suspension, but down below you'll have some fluid build up. I think all my bikes have good fork seals right now, so I don't even have anything to show you there. But yeah, now we're gonna move over to my Aprilia because I haven't really cleaned this off in a second. If you look at this one, you'll see this is not fork seal leakage. That is just uncleaned fork tube that I need to clean real bad. But I think that's a good example. Fork seal leakage will be like physical, you could rub your finger and see liquid. You'll see the oil from the forks coming on there. So that's what you don't want. But a little bit of stuff like that, that's okay. Once again, that just goes into cleaning your bike beforehand. Anyway, also, ooh, custom calipers. Okay, now over here, very hard to see, but if you look in there, I'll kind of zoom you in a little bit. Anyway, way back in here, back behind, in fact, way back here, you see back where my finger is, it's not in focus, so I apologize for that, but this is the angle you want to be looking at where you can actually see the thickness of your brake pads from in front. It takes a little bit of effort, and you'll want a flashlight for it. In fact, let me see if I can't shine a flashlight back in or kind of help us out. So you want a flashlight for it. Man, this is crazy. But if you look back in there, this camera's not gonna wanna focus on it because why would it? That's what you're looking for, is that thickness back there of your brake pads. So they will probably take a look at that. If you haven't looked at it in a minute, you also definitely should, but that's where you're looking. Oh, lower this thing. Oh yeah, all right. Okay, that is pretty much gonna finish up the big things I wanted to cover for TrackDay Tech. Once again, you should 100% go look at the website and look at what they have covered. The big common offenders here are gonna be your chain tightness, your fork seals, that's a big one. A lot of people forget to look at that. And then, yeah, other things that'll get you, if you just got your tires changed, make sure you pump your rear brake. I do that all the time on accident because I never use the rear brake very often. Usually they won't like tell you, hey, you need to go get that fixed. They'll just tell you, oh, did you get your tire changed? Make sure you pump that up, and you pump it up, they check it, they're good to go. But they will 100% like test your clutch usually. They'll kind of pull the lever there, they'll pull the brake lever, they'll feel the rear brake, make sure that thing's working, all that sort of stuff. So that's a kind of general overview of everything you can go look at. If you're about to go do your first track day, or like I said, first one after a while, you've been commuting on the bike, whatever else, make sure you look at your tires, look at your brakes, look at all those things, check your fluid. They're not gonna check your oil and make sure that it's good, so you should know whether or not you need an oil change and all of that, but you shouldn't go into tech having any real questions. You should know that your bike's in good working condition. The last thing that we're gonna talk about, I haven't really talked about yet, is just the taping of everything and making sure everything's removed that needs to be. So mirrors taped up, removed, license plate, usually they want it removed. Sometimes people don't really care. Maybe taped up, whatever, but turn signals need taped up, and headlights and taillights all need taped up. That's usually for a couple reasons. A lot of people say it's so they don't shatter if you hit the track, but they're made of this new material on all these new bikes so they don't shatter. So that's not really the reason as much anymore, but it's also so it doesn't distract people. You don't want the guy behind you seeing brake lights or not, or whatever, and braking way too early or way too late. You want to go based off of how the person is riding. At least that's as far as I've always understood. If you have more info on why we're still taping headlights, please let me know. But that's gonna finish this up for tonight. If you guys have any questions, please let me know down in the comments. I'll be happy to answer them. You can also always hit me up on Facebook or Instagram at JKMoto Entertainment. Give us a follow while you're over there. I would appreciate it, or I think Facebook is a like. Click the like button. But that's it. Once again, please subscribe to the channel, throw a like on the video, and let us know how your first track day went, or whether or not you passed tech, and let me know if they hit you up with a chain tightness problem. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys in the next video.